All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about how basically kings and queens started off as kings and queens. You know, they didn't just like pop out of the sky. Um, we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the Inquisition and the natives on the American side. So we're going to talk about what's going on in Europe and things like that. And then we're going to jump across the Atlantic Ocean and talk about what's going on in the Americas. Okay. So your objectives today, we're going to analyze how the importance of the Magna Carta, basically what it is and how important was this document. You're going to find out it's actually really, really important. Then we're going to examine the level of engineering skill it takes to build a city on a lake. You heard me right, not on an island, on a lake. How do you build a city on a lake? Okay. And then we're going to create an argument on which Central Southern American empire was the most impressive. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the warm up. And there it is. The first question asks you uh, to basically compare the dead people and the living people. What do you notice about them? So look at how they look, okay, and then write that out for number one. The second question asks you to basically compare the body language of both the living and the dead. Okay, and if you don't know what body language is, if I do something like this, does it look like I'm happy? No, right? It looks more like I'm upset or I don't want to hear what you're saying, things like that. If I do, like that, does that look like I'm paying attention? No, right? So look at the body language of the living and the dead. Particularly look at the where they're positioned as well. You know, look at that. So go ahead, write your responses because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So here's the thing: how did the kings and queens? How did the first ones get appointed? Basically, they told people that they were chosen by God. That God like shined the light going, oh, you are the chosen one. You know, and the thing is, you have to remember at this time, the peasants were not that bright. They didn't have schools and things like that. And the only thing they really had was the church. So if the church said, hey, yeah, this person was chosen by God, who are they to question it, right? God chose them, so how could they question God? You're not supposed to. So that's how a lot of them started. The divine right, the divine appointment that God chose them to be the king, the queen, and that's it. They could do what they want. Okay. And again, power is passed down from father to son and things like that. Now, if you look at this little picture over here, this is actually a family tree from one of these Dark Ages families. And if someone along the line became king, and let's say they don't have a kid and they die, they would look at this graph and basically go, okay, so and so from this side, they're now the king. All right, so it is kind of like, dang, there's a lot. There is. Okay. Now here's another part. Why did these people get married over here? Things like that. Why are they branching out? Because that's how they made alliances back in the day. So let's say this: if your mom, dad were king and queen, and there was a neighbor down the road, um, you know, they didn't get along, but they wanted to get along so that their kingdoms could be big. Basically, what they would do is have you marry one of their children. So if you're a guy, you would marry their daughter. If you're a daughter, you would marry their guy. If you're a guy, you were basically going to be king of the territory once both your father and your father-in-law passed away. Then that whole area would be your kingdom. Ladies, I hate to say this, but you guys wouldn't get jack squat. I hate to say it. Yeah, you might be queen, but that's about it. Um, And if you say you had children and the guy died, the son would be king. You know, sorry. Now, the thing is, in Europe at this time, there was good kings and bad kings. Charlemagne, considered a good king. King Richard the Lionheart, we talked about him last class during the Crusades. He's considered a really good king. Then you got some bad kings. One of them we're going to talk about in a little bit is King John. If you've ever heard the stories of Robin Hood, that's the guy. Then there was King Edward I, also known as Longshanks. This guy was a very cruel man. I mean, he would conquer an area just to conquer people behind them. You know, he was very vicious, very mean, had no remorse. Okay. Now, his son, Edward II, he was not like his dad. He wasn't as cruel or malicious, but he just like, I don't care what you guys do. I don't care. I want to be king. I want to enjoy myself. I don't care. Go, whatever happens. Yeah, send some soldiers to defend that area. I don't care. I want to do what I want to do. He didn't take the kingdom very seriously. He just wanted the fruits and the joys of being king. He could care less about the people. He could care less about his territory being taken. He's like, fine, whatever. I don't care. So that's the thing about him. Okay. Now, what did the king rule? They basically owned a large amount of land, right? They did, in a sense, own the armies, but that was really the nobles. But the thing is, they controlled the nobles. And then, of course, the peasants, the serfs. Okay. Now, when I say they kind of controlled the armies, but the nobles controlled the armies, that's what happened when the Magna Carta. Um, it's known as the Great Charter, and it was signed in June 15th, 1215. Basically, what happened was the nobles realized, we really have the power. The army is ours. We just basically listen to the king, and if we unite and say no to the king, what's he going to do? He's not going to do anything. He can't do anything. So that's what they did. They basically all united and told the king, told King John, we're sick of your crap. You're going to do this. You're going to sign this document that limits your power as king. This is like the first document to ever truly limit the power of the king. And one of the number one things about it basically said, no one is above the law. The king, nobles, peasants, nobody. Nobody is above the law. Okay. Also, rights were guaranteed. Individual rights, rights when it comes to justice and liberty, and rights when it comes to trials. So there were 63 in total. Okay. But that's what it is. That's what it did. And it was, again, revolutionary. First one of its kind. Okay. Now we're going to skip the part with the Catholic Church and the Christian kings. We're going to skip that part. But I want to go over the Inquisition. This thing is one of those things in history. It's like, wow, really, that happened? Yeah, it did. The Inquisition was this. There were people who believed, there's a lot of Jewish people, Muslim people, who they're worshiping the wrong God. They need to be taught that this is the true way, not whatever their religion says. Our religion is right. We need to convert them, make them see the light. We are, in fact, saving their souls. They even went after other Christian and Catholic people who they felt were not living the best Christian Catholic life. They would do is take them, right, and then basically torture them. Okay, you're going to see that in a second. Now remember, the thing is, this is all, they don't want to kill people. They just want to, in a sense, kind of torture them to the point where they break and they accept the Christian lifestyle. Okay, so don't answer number one yet because I'm going to break it down for you. Or you just want to, if you want to listen first and then answer it. So the question says, which one do you think is the most torturous slash painful for you personally? Okay. So one of the things they did was the stretch and pulling. Basically, they tied people up and they would crank and crank and crank, and it would pull, 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 and sometimes your arms would pop out of their sockets or the pelvis bone, the your leg muscle would pop out of its pelvis. You know, very painful things like that, and they would basically keep you there and maybe stretch you some more. You know, they wouldn't kill you. It's all torture. This other one I thought was interesting. Basically, what they did is they tied up somebody. They had their hands bound behind their backs. They had their feet tied together, and they're basically hoisted, like 20, 30 feet in the air, and left there. And after a while, hanging like that, your arms are going to pop out of their sockets, And a student asked me in class, what happens if the rope broke? Well, if the rope broke, it broke. Imagine falling 20 feet and your arms are bound. If you fall on your shoulder, you're going to break your collarbone. If you fall on your feet, you're going to break your ankles. You fall on your head, you're going to bust your head. So, yeah, it was pretty bad. Number 3 is basically waterboarding. Okay, if you don't know what that is, it's when they put your head down, your feet up, and they put a cover over your face, and they constantly pour water. Okay, now it's not like they just jug and then grab another one. No, there's another person. Right when that first jug is about to be done, they start pouring the other one. They put that cloth on your face, so the water is going up your nose and in your mouth. And when you try to breathe through your mouth, you're sucking in that water from the cloth and from the water that's being poured in your face. So, yeah. And the thing is, again, they're not going to drown you. It's just torturing. So the point where you're about to pass out and you can't breathe, they would stop, let you catch your breath, and then do it all over again. Number 4, they basically tied you to a metal wheel, right? Chain you and slowly turn you, and then there's fire underneath. So you would be burned slowly, and then you come up, you get some relaxation, you get some fresh air, maybe recover a little bit, and then all of a sudden you're coming right back around and you're getting burned again. The other thing a student asked me was, wouldn't the wheel catch on fire? No, because the wheels were made of metal, and so were your chains. So you know how metal is with heat, it transfers. So that chains tied to your hands and to your feet, they're going to get burnt. They're going to get hot too. So you're getting burned like crazy. Number 5, you may have seen it on Despicable Me. It's this chamber that had these little pokey things all around and made of metal. And you had to basically stay still in this chamber. And if you got moved one way, you get stabbed. And you move the other, you get stabbed. They would have everywhere except for the eye area. The eyes would be clear so you can see out the chamber. And sometimes they would leave people in there for like 2 days, 3 days. I don't know about you, but I can't stand in the same spot for 3 days. That's ridiculous. Number 6 was another one I found that was interesting. They basically got a stone slab, right? Put your feet in the middle, put the stone on top, right? And then they would burn the feet. And if you try to like push the stone, they would burn your hands. Now all this is what they did to torture people. Okay, so now you can go ahead and answer the question. Which one do you feel is the most painful to you? Which one is like the one you'd be like, no, I will not do that. I'd rather take this one over this one. Yeah, that one's no. Which one would you say? Okay, so pause the video, write your responses, but we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. Now remember, all those torture devices, it wasn't to kill people, it was to save their souls. Okay? And what they did, if forgot to mention this part. I do apologize. But what they did is, if you said, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to convert. I'm going to convert," they didn't just like take you at your word and let you go. No, they would put a metal cross in fire, and once it got red hot, they would take it out and burn you in the chest. So that cross was right over your heart. You know, so you didn't get away, scot free. If you're like, "Oh yeah, I convert, I convert." No, you still got that burn at the very least. You know. So my question to you is this: what are your thoughts about the Inquisition? Do you think that it was okay for the church to do what they did? Why or why not? Remember, to those people, they're not torturing people. They're not doing anything bad. They're saving those people's souls. I had a lot of students in class tell me, well, man, how could they live with themselves doing that to people? Because again, they didn't see it as they were doing stuff bad. They saw it as, I'm saving these guys' souls. What better thing could you do in your life than to free someone's soul, make sure that they go to heaven, things like that. That's how they justified it. All right, so write your response. Okay, we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so now we're going to jump over the Atlantic and talk about the Central America, um, South America area. So the first civilization around was the Olmecs. Okay, they were from 1200 to 400 BC. Then came the Mayans. Now, the Mayans had several very impressive things. Number one, their temples. It wasn't some like two little story thing. No, these were massive temples made of huge stones and things like that. The other thing about the Mayans is they were excellent mathematicians and astronomers. They would look at the stars and do the calculations. They were really, really good with math. Okay. Um, and speaking of their math, their calendars were very, very impressive. Their calendars were almost so perfect, they were only off 30 seconds a year. Our calendar our calendars, we have to stick an extra day every 4 years. These guys only had that at 30 seconds every year. So that's kind of impressive. Okay. Now, I get a lot of questions about the Mayan calendar. What was it about? Things like that. So the Mayan calendar started in 3114 BC and it ended December 23rd, 2012. Now, what was supposed to happen? Was it a doomsday thing? No, no. That's for people who don't understand um, the Mayan culture and what they were supposed to be about, things like that. Basically, remember I told you they were great astronomers. They would look at the stars and planets and things like that. And they basically found out that on that day, all the planets were going to be in a line with the sun. All of them. That's basically it. Okay, that's what that calendar was about. But again, because people think they see a countdown, so they're like, oh my God, it's something bad. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. No, no. Okay, but that's what it was. Also, with the Mayans, they did have slaves. When they conquered an area, they would take the poorer people and make them slaves. But the rich, noble, top people, they basically sacrificed them. So they're like, we don't want you guys. You're useless. You don't do nothing. You always had the lower people do everything for you guys. So we're gonna kill you guys. Sacrifice you to our gods. Okay. The thing about the mines though, they somehow just like vanished. It was really, really weird. There was like nobody who really came and took over the territory and things like that. If anybody took over, it was a jungle. The jungle took over the temples and things like that, and they were only rediscovered, centuries later. Okay. The next big culture was the Toltecs. The Toltecs, if you look at this map, that brown area, that dark brown, they conquered all that area. That was them. As you can see, it's quite a bit. Um, Now the thing is, they went all the way down to Guatemala, which is quite a bit. but their civilization had a lot of gold, silver, and copper. But the thing is, since they were expanding and they were so big, they picked a fight with a lot of people, and a lot of people fought back. And that's how they went away, which made room for the next group of people, which were the Aztecs. Okay, their headquarters was on an island in the middle of a lake. That place was called Tenochtitlan. Okay, that's how you pronounce. That's how you pronounce it. Now, the main temple, the main area was on the island. The rest of the city was built on a lake. Like I said, it was built on a lake, guys. And this lake is not, this deep. It's pretty deep, And I've had a lot of students say, well, how do you build a city on a lake? Basically, what they did is they took these big sticks, packed it down, past the hard part of, the soft part of the mud in the ground, and put a bunch of them. And they basically then used that as a foundation. And then they just basically built their city that way. Put sticks and things like that, again, as a foundation, and then just built on there. And as this picture shows, it's a pretty accurate depiction of how their city was. Built on a lake, guys. Again, that's pretty impressive. Even the man, Hernan Cortez, the guy who conquered them, when he saw the Tenochtitlan, he was like, damn, he was impressed. So, okay. The next group we're going to talk about is the Incas. Now, the Incas are located in current day Chile. Okay, they're mainly mountain people. The thing is about them is it's pretty interesting. Is they lived in the mountains and they carved their homes in the mountains. So if you look at this picture, all that flat area, that's not nature made. That's man made. Imagine no heavy machinery, no electricity, no drill bits and things like that to basically make this area flat and things like that. Steps to climb up it. How much time, pressure, and man hours it took. It was impressive. In total, they had about 24,800 miles of roads up mountains, around, and things like that. So it's quite a bit. The other impressive thing about them is they didn't have symbols to represent letters for their language. They didn't have like a picture of an elephant or a bird to represent a letter or things like that. No, they didn't do that. What they had was string and knots. Yes, you heard me right. String with knots. And they'd be like a knot, string, knot, string, knot. That meant something, along with something on the next part of string. Let's say with knot, little part of a string, knot, string. That meant something else, So that was their kind of writing style to communicate to one another. So question number 3 says, based off your prior knowledge and what you've learned today, which Mesoamerica civilization do you feel is the most impressive? The Olmecs, which were the first ones to start it off, the Mayans, the Toltecs, the Aztecs, or the Incas? Which one do you feel was the most impressive? Okay, again, using what you've known in the past and what you've learned right now, which ones do you feel? Okay, so go ahead, write your response, okay, because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so you're going to answer one of these 3 questions. The first one says, why was the Magna Carta so important? Okay, so if you need help, go back to your notes, read that up. The second one says, how impressed are you on a scale of 1 to 10 that the Aztecs built a city on a lake? And explain. So if you put 1, explain why a 1. If you put 5, why 5? If you put 10, okay, well, why 10? Okay, so don't forget the explanation part. The last one says, which southern central, I'm so sorry. That's where I got the question from. That should be last. I mean, that last one should not be there. So it should just be those top two ones, okay? Sorry about that, guys. Um, so once you've answered the first one or second one, you are done for this class, okay? So you guys, you take care, you be safe. Hope you learned something new, and I hope you enjoyed yourself, okay? Adios.